We've made it to day 5, and we are reading Job chapter 6 through Job chapter 9, and it is an incredible privilege to have you along with us on this journey to read the entire Bible all the way through by the end of the year. If you are new to Bible reading, or if you are looking for a Bible reading program, this is the best place for you. You can join us by clicking the description box below and accessing the invitation to accept the journey, the invitation to read the Bible through YouVersion Bible app, and it will allow you to be a part of a conversation that goes on every single day from many different people across the country who are reading the Bible with us. So please take a moment to take advantage of that, and I believe you will be tremendously blessed by the community of readers. So today we are continuing our reading of the book of Job, and we are in chapter 6 through chapter 9. And this is an ongoing conversation between Job, except today we were introduced to a new character. There's this new friend that has come on the scene named Bildad. And Bildad takes a very unique perspective, not one too different from Eliphaz, who is just as critical of Job as we might expect. But this is a bit interesting because he wants to blame Job for some unknown sin or some unknown wrong. And this is a very difficult thing to accept when you actually are righteous and upright. You know, a lot of times whenever we see this sort of situation, the reality is the person who is enduring the suffering may not be as righteous as Job is depicted in this text, but by God's own testimony, Job is an upright man. He's blameless. He is full of integrity. He stays away from evil, yet he is enduring this suffering. And Job seems to want to vindicate himself as a means of trying to understand why would something like this happen. One of my favorite verses is in chapter 7, verse 21, where Job is responding to Eliphaz. But what he states here is, listen, if I had done any wrong, Lord, why don't you just forgive me and take my guilt away? Why punish me like this? And it really brings to our attention just what Job's thoughts are about God, how he deals with man, this idea that he is first just, but then also he is not vindictive. There's a lot here to be considered concerning how he feels, or at least how he understands God to actually work. But on the other side, there's an indication of God being a just God, which means if you do something wrong, then yes, God does punish you. And we see that side with Bildad. So there are two sides of a coin here that are being considered in this book. But one thing I took away from today's reading is that suffering is a hard thing to accept. As a believer, suffering, whether for good or for bad, whether it's a reason behind it that is self-inflicted or whether it is something that God is doing for his own glory, the reality of suffering is a tremendous and a very difficult thing to accept. And when we look at this, I see Job as being every human being that is a believer in God. Whether we try to over-spiritualize it, whether we try to act as if it doesn't bother us, or whether we try to see the positive side of it, the reality is all of us struggle with suffering, and all of us, in some way or form, we have questions that even if we don't seek to ask them in the way that Job is going about it here, we have questions, we have concerns, we have this concern about why this happens to us in the way that it does. But I think one of the things I take away from today's reading is no matter how difficult it is that we are enduring a struggle, I think the focus is to consider, at least accept the reality that in the midst of all of this, God is still faithful. And whereas we may have all this chatter and all this noise from different perspectives or different viewpoints, whether that's from friends or people who don't understand you or people who don't understand God, whatever the circumstance is, the reality is we have to keep our eye on the fact that God is faithful. But then also, God is just. And this is the critical part of the conversation that no one seems to be willing to really let go. It is a reality that if God is who he says he is, he must be just. And so therefore, from Job's perspective, he's trying to figure out how is this right? I have to come to understand this. I have to come to grips with this, because it is my understanding that God, if he is indeed God, he's just, he's fair. But this doesn't feel so fair. And for Bildad, looking from the outside in, it's like, well, of course he's fair, and he's so fair that there must be something wrong with you, Job. Well, we're going to continue to read for the remainder of this book and discover that not either of them, none of Job's friends, nor really Job himself, had it quite right. There are some things that we just don't know. And in all of that, and our lack of knowledge, our lack of understanding, our lack of awareness of what God is doing, we should always trust him and believe that he is faithful to those who trust in him. So, brothers and sisters, we have a bit more to read, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are concerning the text that we have considered for today. And if you would, please drop a comment in the comment box below to let me know what you see, what you're thinking, and what you're learning. I'd love to hear more. But until tomorrow, take care, God bless, and live by the word.